Yeah, here we go now, baby. Right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Monday edition of Before You Bet. You're live right now on the Coverage YouTube and X channels. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like and subscribe button right down there. So a great big show planned for you guys today. We have a doubleheader, Monday Night Football. A couple of good-looking games, especially that first game down there in Tampa Bay. We have, I think, 8 total bets for these games, a mix of totals and props. A little bit of World Series talk. We got the matchup that I wanted. Big field, Dodgers versus Yankees. Then in the second half of the show, Brad Powers will be here to break down some of what we saw over the weekend in college football and look ahead to the upcoming week, his best bets of the week. If you guys want to participate in the show today, very easy to do so. Hit up that live chat. What do you like in Monday Night Football? Who's winning the World Series? What do you like in the week to come here in college football? So some people probably watching, we joked about it last week saying, hey, the Dolphins helmet's going to be on Joe's mantle when he returns on Monday. It is not to be. I thought we were going to have it back up. Dolphins get off to a 10-0 lead, then don't score again for the rest of the game. I think that was it right there. They had a lead at some point early in the game. And I tell you guys, the Dolphins, they bring me down. I'm kind of numb to it, but those New York Jets, baby, they bring me right back up. Loving that on Sunday night. Aaron Rodgers, general manager of the Jets, not going well. I would not trust that guy to run my fantasy team. Okay, let's get into it. Let's bring in my guy with the sexiest smile in all of sports betting. Jingles, 5-1 on the week so far for me. How did the day treat you yesterday?
Good. We got those carries like Chuba's an easy machine, down like 20-plus points, still getting carries. Easy over 15.5. And that Houston offense looks absolutely broken when it's not indoors. But Joe Mixon's still getting 20-plus carries. That was plus 320, so that was an easy one to cash. What else was cracking? Not Noah Fant. Oh, we had Jonnu Smith with the big game for Miami, right? Like that was
yeah.
Did you have that on your bingo card? Him leading your Dolphins in receiving yards?
I did not. More on them here shortly. But but yeah, I should have swept the show on Friday. I gave out 4 picks. I had the over in that Panthers-Commanders game. I think what did the Commanders scored 40 points. I think the Panthers contributed 7 points to that. So absolutely pathetic by them. Just checking in on the live chat. Alec Ellis Pierce asks, Max Holloway, good value as an underdog. Big UFC coming up on Saturday. No, I don't think it is good value on Max Holloway. However, over 4.5 rounds, minus 105. Absolutely love that bet. A lot more UFC coverage on the Coverage YouTube channel coming up this week. Okay, Jingles, let's get into how we always start these Monday shows, our biggest winners and losers of the day. Yesterday, I'll get us started, and we start positive, like always. My biggest winner of the week, Jared Goff and those Detroit Lions. That's championship football by the Lions yesterday. On the road versus an undefeated division rival who is coming off of their bye, a defense that nobody has solved yet this year. What do the Lions do? In a 10-0 hole, by the way, as well. They score 31 points, 7 yards per play. Jared Goff, look at this guy. Last 3 games, 58 completions on 68 attempts, 280 or more yards in each game, 7 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. He's now 4th on the MVP odds board. For some reason, Patrick Mahomes is first. Josh Allen and Lamar ahead of him. My second biggest winner of the week, hey, Russell Wilson. We got to give this guy a little bit of credit. He might be the biggest punching bag in the history of the NFL. We love to kick this guy when he's down, right? And he was getting off to a pretty ugly start there yesterday. He couldn't complete these passes. He's skipping them off the ground. But ultimately, he played a pretty clean game. He didn't turn the ball over. He was only sacked 1 time. 264 yards, 2 touchdown passes. He ran 1 in. And 37 points scored by the Steelers in that game, Sunday Night Football against the Jets yesterday. That's the most points the Steelers have scored in 4 years in Russell Wilson's first start for the team. So if he can play like that for the rest of the season, I thought the Jets defense was supposed to be good. That is not the case. More on them here shortly. And my third biggest winner of the week, anyone who backed the Kansas City Chiefs. Come on now. Did you look at the game situation? Andy Reid after a bye. Kansas City Chiefs as an underdog. Most people like me look at these situations and say, okay, I got to find a way to back the Chiefs. Some just took them +1.5, +2. Some took them on the money line. I threw them on a teaser. Sometimes it's not complicated here, people. Andy Reid, after a bye going into that game, was 21-4. KC was on a 13-3-1 against the spread tear as an underdog. Sometimes it is simple. What are you doing taking the 49ers yesterday? It should have been Chiefs or nothing. Come on. Jingles, your 3 biggest winners of the week yesterday.
Just getting over to the chat, looking to see Lions get Crosby. They beat KC. I think Detroit's the only team right now that would give KC a run. We saw what KC did versus Baltimore, AFC, Kansas City, NFC, Detroit, and kind of like Detroit in that spot. Yeah, I don't see the Ravens getting. I don't know if they're gonna get past Kansas City, but plus 22-1, sure. Oh, before I get to it, I put out what Grand Slam in the World Series was priced at 250-1.
For one person to hit a Grand Slam?
Any Grand Slam in the series. It's now gone. It's now gone.
Well, there's a lot worse things you can put $10 on for
$25 was paying like $6,000. Yeah.
Jesus,
so they took that off quickly because I think it was erroneous. So it'll be interesting to see if they take that down and say it was the wrong odds because they just redid it and put it at 25-1, which is more believable. I had to put it and like count the zeros. One of those things. Is it 250? God. Hey, but it start off same thing. Jared Goff, but I'm going Jared Goff under pressure. If we go to Josh's winners, what do I got? There we go. Jared Goff under pressure. He was pressured a season high 52% of his dropbacks from Next Gen Stats. Guy goes 10 for 11 for 164 yards and 2 TDs versus arguably what everybody's saying was the best defense in football. He leads the league with 11.6 yards per attempt under pressure. The next best quarterback, not as high as 9 yards per attempt. He's completing 85% of his passes over the last 3 games. If you're looking for anybody, I mean, outside of Mahomes, I still don't know how Mahomes is the betting favorite for MVP. Goff, I think, right now is my choice. If I had to bet, I give you going Goff and Lamar. We'll see what happens with Lamar tonight. But Goff right now absolutely dealing. And that was the test. That was the big test. And that was a defensive coordinator who's giving him problems before in the past. But it was nice to see that he solved it. And a lot has to go to Johnson, the offensive coordinator. Saquon returns to MetLife. 17 carries for 176 yards and score. That's insane. He was so good. Only him and A.J. Brown were the only 2 players on that team to have more than 1 catch. He's still plus 375 for Offensive Player of the Year. And I think tonight's your buy window on it before Henry plays. So if Henry kind of falters or just is, I don't know, 95 to 100 yards, I think Saquon jumps right in there. He had 55% of his team's yards last week, 33% on the season. Guy's an absolute beast. And I'll get to Philadelphia. We were talking about them last week, kind of a clown show last week. They weren't very good offensively outside of Saquon this week. Game script was pretty happy. I think next week's a good time to fade him. But then here I am talking about Brock Bowers again. What'd he do? 10 catches, career high, 93 yards. It's his 3rd 90-yard game. Devontae's there, and it doesn't matter between Gardner Minshew and AOC who's throwing them the ball. Basically the same arm. 14 targets on 44 passes. He leads the league in catches. He's 5th in targets, 8th in yards, and he's still somehow 40-1 offensive rookie of the year. I know Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams should be going into the week with Jaden Daniels' injury, should be the betting favorite, but 40-1's insane. He should be 10-1.
I took Powers 100+ receiving yards at plus 410 odds.
He hasn't 94. Got there. He just keeps flirting with it.
He had 94, but they get the ball back. I'm like, well, they got to go. Hopefully, the Rams play soft coverage, right? Because the Raiders need to score a touchdown. I'm hoping, okay, they can get him like a quick 7-8 yard completion here.
They went field goal down 8.
Goddamn right. Yeah, more on that later.
And then the broadcast goes, well, Antonio Pierce has a game manager who tells him what to do. And you're like, that's the move?
Todd in the chat says Giants GM biggest loser. I agree. Now, like, I know the whole thing, like, you don't want to pay a running back. It can kill you. Like Ezekiel Elliott absolutely killed the Cowboys a couple years ago. But you do have some situations. McCaffrey and the 49ers. It had worked out up until this point. I think when it's your own guy, though, maybe it's a little bit different. And when your own guy can transform a team that much, look how Derrick Henry has transformed the Ravens. He might be the difference maker to get them over the hump here in the playoffs. So especially you let him go to a division rival. Yeah, that's really blown up in the Giants' face. Okay, let's get into my biggest losers of the week. Let's get negative here. A couple pairings here. So the first pairing, it is the New York Jets owner and GM, Woody Johnson and Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, I wouldn't trust these two losers to run my fantasy team, for God's sakes. It's one thing to lose a game. Okay, you go to Pittsburgh. It's, not an easy environment. It's at night. The team's got a lot going on. But it's another thing to get absolutely boat raced here by the Steelers offense. That's the most points the Steelers have scored in over 4 years. Like I said, 409 yards of offense for Pittsburgh in that one. So 4 straight losses here for the Jets. They are 0-2 since firing Robert Saleh. Their defense is now worse. You cannot question it. Their defense is worse since they canned Saleh. So, yeah, they got this streak. The playoffs look like a real long shot here, 2-5 on the season. And you can take a look at the schedule and say, well, the schedule's not too difficult. Cardinals, Colts, they got the Dolphins for a couple of games. They got another game against the Patriots. Here's the thing, guys. The schedule hasn't been that difficult up until this point. They lost at home to the Broncos, and then they allow the Steelers to have the best offensive performance they've had in 4 years. For God's sakes, I thought the defense was supposed to be good.
7.5 minutes, Joe. The defense couldn't get off the field. Like, they iced the game with 7.5 minutes left. The Russell Wilson-led Pittsburgh offense iced the game with nearly 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They never got the ball back. I think they're plus 260 to make the playoffs right now. 6 of their next 10 games, they're a field goal or more favorite.
Hey, I admit it. I am a Jets hater. And if I'm ever wrong, if they completely turn around, I'll admit that I'm wrong. And I'll give them credit I thought that win they had against the Patriots on that Thursday night football game was kind of the spark they needed, something that this team needed to get going. A bunch of guys pretty much kind of like a new group together with Aaron Rodgers, essentially. It was not to be. They have wins over Jacoby Brissett, and they barely beat Will Levis, like you had pointed out before we came on here today. Okay, my second biggest losers of the week. You can make a case for these guys being the biggest losers. Myles Garrett and Jameis Winston. Sometimes
just for sticking up for their QB or what?
Well, it's not just sticking up. It's the words that you use. And sometimes professional athletes can be the most delusional people on planet Earth, just widely out of touch as to what's going on. So, I don't know. I guess I could say that I kind of had mixed feelings about the Deshaun Watson getting booed off the field after he tears his Achilles, ending his season. Who knows what's going to happen with the rest of his career. I wasn't offended by it. I don't care if people booed him, but I guess if you look at it from a moral perspective, we all know that that's probably not the right thing to do. And I have no issue with these guys coming out after the game and defending their quarterback and saying, you know what, guys, that's not right. I know you guys pay your money to get into the game, but when a guy's down that bad, he's hurt. 2 wrongs don't make a right. You shouldn't be booing him off the field, but it is the words you choose to use here. Myles Garrett says, Watson pretty much does everything right. He's been a model citizen through college and most of the pros. Myles, do you watch the news at all, dude? 20 lawsuits, for God's sake. Send Jameis Winston. The lovable doofus, who shouldn't be lecturing anybody on this type of stuff, by the way. Do you know this guy's history? He says Watson put his body and life on the line for this city. No, he didn't. He was going to whoever was going to pay him the most money. It could have been a team in China or a team on the moon. Deshaun Watson was going to take the money and then mail it in, just like he did. So these guys are absolutely nuts. Absolute delusion from these guys, the Cleveland Browns leadership. And my third pairing for the biggest losers of the week, my guy, Miami Mike McDaniel and Antonio Pierce. So Mike McDaniel, the offensive genius, right? He's on a fast track to get fired. He is Brandon Staley light. He might be Brandon Staley heavy here in a couple more weeks if things keep going the way they're going. So how the week after your bye versus a below average defense, you're playing indoors, a controllable environment, Tyreek and Waddle have 4 total targets in the game. Not catches, targets for those guys. So Miami Dolphins last with points per game, 11.7. He's done. He's toast as a head coach. Complete culture overhaul required. Give Mike Vrabel a blank check. Bring him in to run this program. And then you touched on Antonio Pierce. What are you doing? Just doofus. So here's the situation. Losing by 8, 2:50 left to go in the fourth in the game. You need a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to tie things up. 4th and goal in the 9th. The Raiders kick a field goal to get within 5, meaning they still needed to get the ball back and score a touchdown to win. Now, they got the ball back and didn't do anything, but is there not a guy on the sideline that can get in his ear and say,
no, they literally said that during the game. They said Antonio Pierce has a guy who's in charge of game management, and that was his decision. I thought it was the funniest juxtaposition of what you saw, because I needed Matheson for 100 yards. I needed Bowers for 100 yards for big money on both of those guys. They finished at like 96 and 97.
A lot of bad
Raiders covered. There's Brent Hall. That's exactly what it was. It was a kick to cover.
All right. A lot of bad coaching this week. And yeah, I shit on the Jets. I'm a Jets hater, but I'll hate on my own team too if they're being pathetic. I'm numb to it, though. The Miami Dolphins. Time to tank. Okay, Jingles, your biggest losers of the week. Then we'll get into our picks here for Monday Night Football.
No, I just catching up on the chat. Chat was on fire there during your nice little rant. Losers. Back to the Eagles. I think there's some fraudulence within this Eagles team, and obviously what we saw. I mean, Saquon was great, yes, but in this spot, they went 1 for 13 on third downs yesterday. That is insane considering the lopsided score in a 28-3 win. They're bottom 8 in the league in third down percentage. They got lucky with Barkley, like I said, and a Giants O-line who was missing a ton of people, and they could get to Daniel Jones, and they sacked him heavily. I think Cincinnati next week won't be around at -2.5. I think it's a good buy early right now, and I think that moves to 3, and you're starting to see some expensive 2.5. So I think the Eagles' offense, if game script doesn't go their way and they can't just let Saquon run around, I think this is still not a great team. It's a difference between what we saw with Josh Allen. He looked terrible in the first half, absolutely terrible versus Tennessee. Then he come back and still cover as like 9-point favorites. Why? Because he knows how to get things done. CJ Stroud, Atlanta's box score. That was a tough one. I was on Atlanta 2.5. Lost by 20 points, but they went 8 for 15 on third down. They had 385 yards to 339 yards for Seattle. They outrushed them by almost a full yard per carry. They had 3 turnovers. They had 9 penalties for 72 yards. This is a team that can't pass rush. This is not a really good above 500 team, to be honest with you. That fumble touchdown. Seattle looked like the better team. And I mean, we were coming off of week 6 where we were absolutely dumping on Seattle, but you got to give them a bit of credit. Depending on what happens tonight in the Tampa Bay game, Tampa Bay sitting -2.5 right now, might not be there if they put up a good showing. So might want to get on Tampa Bay -2.5 in Cincinnati. And then CJ Stroud and that Houston offense. I was on here Friday talking about Joe Mixon, hit Joe Mixon carries. Why? Because Slowick's offense is super predictable early downs. It's just Joe Mixon. Here's a third down pass that doesn't go anywhere. This is a team that misses Nico Collins more than anybody else. It's like Philadelphia without A.J. Brown. That's why he should have been the betting favorite for Offensive Player of the Year before he got injured. There's a lot to like, but this is an indoor offense that doesn't look great outdoors. -6 at home versus Indy. But I don't really want to fade it because Anthony Richardson, I think, is possibly the worst starting quarterback in football right now, depending on what happens in Miami.
We'll be seeing Flacco again pretty soon. Okay, let's rip through these Monday Night Football picks, and we'll touch on the World Series really quickly. Then we will bring Brad Powers along. Okay, first game. This looks like a beautiful game down here in Tampa Bay. Both of these offenses absolutely flying. So with that in mind, I'm going to take the over on the total of 49.5 for Ravens versus Bucs here. So these teams, look at what they've done here lately. They've each scored at least 30 points in 3 straight games, an average of 38 for Tampa Bay and 35.3 for Baltimore. Now, the issue is that they both stink on defense. Baltimore, 28th in yards allowed per pass attempt. They're allowing a lot of big chunk plays, the second most pass plays of 20 or more yards allowed. Look what Baker Mayfield's doing this season, especially lately. 300 or more yards in 2 of his last 3 games with 9 touchdown passes in those 3 games. And then Tampa Bay, they can't stop the run. They're 24th in yards allowed per rush attempt. Guess who's number one in yards per rush on offense? It is the Baltimore Ravens. So give me over 49.5 for that one. You are targeting a Ravens tight end for your first prop here tonight, Jingles.
Yeah, I just think this is a spot where his price is still cheaper than Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, I think, is around 27.5, but Isaiah Likely over 25.5 receiving yards. Still higher route share, higher snap share than Mark Andrews. He's 4-2 to the over on this, but he can get there with 1 or 2 catches, as he's shown. Was looking at his over 2.5 receptions, but staying away from it just because if Baltimore gets up game script, they're going to go run heavy. So this could be a 1 and done, could be a 2 and done in that spot. And Tampa Bay, if you haven't been following Tampa Bay, they've absolutely just been giving up to opposing tight ends. Last week, Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson, over 100 total yards between the two of them. Kyle Pitts the week before, 7 catches, 88 yards. Dallas Goedert the week before that, 7 for 62. And this is the defensive-minded Todd Bowles team in Tampa Bay, who you know that is going to have to sell out to stop the run. And in that sense, it's going to be a game of adjustments for this Baltimore offense, who Todd Monken can absolutely do it. And I'd be surprised if they started passing the ball around a little more when Tampa Bay tried to take away the run.
My favorite prop for this game, I'm going to take Lamar Jackson to go over his rushing yard total of 51.
I wanted it too. You had it up. I wanted it too. And then I'm like, I can't double up.
Beautiful spot. So this guy's always in the mix on the ground, double-digit carries in 4 of 6 games. He's got a very high ceiling too. So he's averaging 67 rush yards per game. He has topped this number of 51.5 in 4 of 6 games at highs of 87 and 122. And to bring it all together, Tampa Bay is getting beat on the ground by opposing quarterbacks. They've allowed the 6th most rushing yards to quarterbacks this season. Of note, Jaden Daniels went for 88 against him in week 1. Bo Nix had 47 yards against him on the ground in a game here as well. So I think Lamar is going to stuff that stat sheet here tonight. Let's go to one of the Tampa Bay running backs, Rachaad White, back in the lineup. What do you like for him?
I don't like the volume that he's used to getting, that's for sure. Under 27.5 rushing yards. The Bucs have already mentioned that they're going to go all 3 running backs, and all 3 running backs are going to get a chance to run the ball, and whoever's the best is probably going to get more carries. That's what they stated. And guess what? Rachaad White, of the 3, him, Bucky Irvin, and Sean Tucker. I mean, Bucky Irvin and Sean Tucker ran all over New Orleans last week. If you follow Rachaad White, he's an absolute plotter. See, he's had so much time and so many chances to run 15 carries, but he's been a 3.6, 3.4, 3.5 yards per carry back over 3 years. He's a better pass catching back than he is a runner. He might get first crack, but I mean, he's not going to be the first one if they decide they're going to run with a hot hand, because Tucker looked great. And Bucky Irvin, I still think, is the best of the 3 if I had to choose one of the guys to go big in that spot. But at the end, do you really want to take anybody against this Baltimore rush defense that's allowed just 354 total yards on the year, on the season, across 6 games? That is an incredible thing. They run the ball well. They stop the run. That's exactly what they do. Now you got three running backs in this mess. No, it's gone down. It was at like 32. It's fallen. There's some 25s there, but BetMGM at 27.5.
All right, on the game number 2 in Arizona, the Chargers in town, we have a total of 44.5, and I absolutely love the under in this game. Where are you getting this number? 44.5. So Chargers games this season have had an average combined score of 31.4 points. The Chargers haven't seen a game reach 40 points yet this season. Check out the Cardinals offense lately. They are stalling 14 points or less in 3 of their last 4 games. This includes games at home versus the Lions and Commanders, who rank 22nd and 27th in yards allowed per play. And I do think it's fair to expect more field goal attempts than touchdowns in this one. This is mainly due to the red zone play of the Chargers. 30th in red zone offense, 7th in red zone defense. So under 44.5 in the desert. Jingles, what are we looking at for your first prop here? Michael Wilson, a name we've heard a couple times on the show.
I love Michael Wilson. I feel like I bet him every week. I just feel like the opportunities are massive for him. And especially this week. I mean, his total's at 30.5, but this is, you know me, Joe. I take swings at the alts. I like 50s. Let's go 50 here, plus 240. Has anybody checked in on the cluster injuries for the DBs at the Chargers? It's pretty messy. Asante Samuel's out. Christian Fulton. Yasser Taylor questionable. Dean Leonard is out. And now we look at the competition spot. Marv coming off a concussion. He's good to go. But Harrison's gone 4 yards, 64 yards, 45 yards, 36 yards, and 0 yards outside of his game where he went 130 on 4 catches in week 2 versus the Rams. Michael Wilson, usage through the roof. 95% snap share last week, 97% route share. Totals at 30.5. I like it. I think in the range of outcomes, I think a big day for Wilson here is in store.
Okay, my final pick here for the Monday Night Football games. I got burned in this market by Aaron Rodgers last Monday night. I had under on his longest completion. He throws that dinky Hail Mary, ends up going over. But I'm going to make the same bet here on Kyler Murray, for him to go under 34.5 yards for his longest completion of the game. So Chargers, their defense, no big shock here. They are limiting the big pass play, 6 fewest passing plays of 20-plus yards allowed. Now, he's only topped this once in 6 games this season, back in week 2 against the Rams, and he's not throwing a lot of deep balls. Now, I get it. He could dump one off to James Conner, and he could run one for 35 yards, but he's not taking a lot of shots through the air. Just 3 passes of 30 or more air yards all season. He is 19th in average air yards per attempt, so we'll look to fade Murray in this category. Jingles, bring it home. Final pick here for the NFL segment of the show.
Yeah, back on tight ends. It's been a heavy tight end week, right? Foster Moreau, we started there, plus money over 1.5. Noah Fant, I hit yesterday, hitting likely. And now Will Dissly over 3.5 receptions, plus 130. A great number. A buy to plus 110 on my side. Hayden Hurst is doubtful. So he's going to get a massive amount of snaps. When Hayden Hurst went out last week, he played 70% of the snaps. Look at what pass catchers. Look at the situation for the Chargers. It's getting ugly. Quentin Johnson, doubtful. Lad McConkey, questionable. Simi Fehoko, don't know too much about him, but guess what? He's questionable too. Davis, also questionable. DJ Chark out. They are running out of bodies. They're going to run the ball a lot. If you look, J.K. Dobbins is, I think, his carry total somewhere in the 20s. So it's going to be a run-heavy game. But, I mean, in this spot, Will Dissly, his average depth of target is 1.8 yards. It's the second lowest in all of football.
Wow.
The guy is just basically running like tight end screens. So his routes are like high probable catches in that sense. So 3.5 plus money. Love this spot. More tight ends this week.
I always laugh about Will Dissly because I was at a wedding 2 years ago. It was an October wedding on a Saturday night, and a drunk guy, found out what I do for a living, and he took a liking to me, and he would not shut the fuck up about Will Dissly's props the next day. Anytime touchdown score to go over his receiving yard total, over his catches. And I come to find out he's in my brother's year, telling him the same thing. Will Dissly the next day.
Was it Will Dissly? Was Will Dissly at the wedding?
No, it wasn't him. But Dissly has 1 catch for 2 yards the next day. So whenever I see him, that's what I think of. It's a bit of an inside joke.
When you bring Powers on, ask him the same question. Ask him about, because of his career, about some of the awkward questions he has to have. Some of those same things, right? Like just the meme of someone grabbing someone and talking about, well, what do you think about this team this week? You're like, okay, sure. Sure, he gets trapped in a corner a few times a week.
Really quickly, let's not spend a whole lot of time on this because I told Brad we'd be ready for him at 20 minutes after. It's not 28 after, but we do have to touch on this World Series really quickly. It's a matchup I wanted. I wanted something with a big feel to it. This is the biggest World Series matchup in a long time. Judge versus Ohtani. A lot of star power here. So the Dodgers favorite, minus 125. Yankees coming back at plus 105. I think that's more or less based on the fact that the Dodgers have home field advantage. This is so close that I'm probably going to take whatever team has a plus next to their odds. So I would lean Yankees. Have to look into it more. We're going to have a lot more on it Thursday and Friday. Game 1 is on Friday. Jingles, who are you taking to win the series here? Then we'll get you out of here.
I don't know. It's a coin flip. Honestly, it's tough at those odds. It's basically a pick 'em plus home field advantage. I think there's some spots where you can get World Series MVP. Obviously, you're not betting Ohtani. I got Ohtani 13-1. But that was in the divisional series. That's how far ago you had to get it at that. It's now plus 200. But there are spots. And you mentioned Garrett Cole will be the number 1 starter, game 1. And because of the days off and the travel, he'll have a chance to start 3 games. So if he starts game 7 and wins game 7, like that's a pretty good spot. You can get Garrett Cole 33-1 right now for World Series MVP. And Tommy Edelman is hitting in the 4 spot. I think he's hitting over 400 in the series. He hit 11 RBIs. just smacking guys in. And the table setters in front of him are awesome. And as I always say, I think voters will always appreciate the guy who hits in a run more so than the guy scoring the run. He's 33-1. If you're looking for non-Judge and non-Ohtani World Series MVPs, I think those two are probably your best pick at 30, better than 30-1.
All right, Jingles, we'll leave it at that. Great spot today. We're going to be right back with you on Thursday and Friday's show. Make sure to check Jingles out. He hosts an NHL show here on the Covers YouTube channel. We're calling him Stackman around here lately, so make sure you check that out.
16 games tomorrow. If I play that stack system, I have 70 bets to make, which is just ridiculous.
Yes, sir. All right, so give Jingles a follow on social media, and we'll see you on Thursday, buddy. Best of luck with your bets.
All right, later, guys.
All right, let's get to our guy waiting patiently in the green room down there in sunny Las Vegas. Brad Powers went all along here today. Brad, how you making out?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Supporting the Buccaneers here tonight?
Yeah, I lean with them. Not a big bet. I'm more on the Cardinals than anything tonight, but yeah, lean that way.
The Cardinals bounce back. Okay, so we know what the biggest story out of the weekend in college football was, but what are your two biggest takeaways from the weekend that was?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll get to Georgia and Texas and Alabama and Tennessee in a minute, but I always like to go a little bit off the beaten path. I'll go with one, Indiana. I mean, finally played a team with a pulse and beat that team being Nebraska to bloody pulp. I mean, from start to finish. And again, we've said this for a few weeks now. You look at Indiana's schedule, they're going to be favored in every game but one, that being the Ohio State game. And even if they were to lose that game, you're talking about 11-1 Big Ten team, only lost on the road against Ohio State. Very likely that Indiana is making their way to the playoffs. Now, I will say that their quarterback got hurt, his thumb, Curtis Rourke, who's been playing as well as anybody in the country at the quarterback position. But just to show how dominant Indiana is, their backup goes in, plays the entire second half. The score is 28-0 Indiana in the second half with the backup quarterback. So this looks like a legit team. Amazing. Win total was 5.5. First year coach, entire roster overhauled. Stunning. And one other team, I got to mention this because they usually get a lot of love when they don't deserve it, but they deserve love. Now it's the Colorado Buffaloes.
Yeah.
I mean, another dominant road win. You look at their schedule. Look, their last 5 games are going to be favored in all 5, believe it or not. Now, all 5 by less than a touchdown, but they're in the mix here for to go to the Big 12 championship game. So, got to tip my cap to Colorado. They're playing really well. Offensive line's protecting better, and defense is showing up.
Let's go. Okay. So, yeah, Georgia, massive win Saturday night as an underdog on the road here. They are the new national championship favorite, coming in around plus 360, followed by Ohio State plus 400. Texas drops to plus 475, and Oregon plus 500. So Georgia as a new favorite here. Fair or an overreaction?
No, it's fair. I mean, it's just safe to say their A game is better than everybody else in the country right now. And, we've seen their A game now a few times. Now, we haven't seen a full 60 minutes, but we did see it in the second half of the Clemson game. Clemson's won every game since then. Second half against Alabama. It doesn't look as good now because Alabama struggles, but still down 28 to up on the road in Tuscaloosa is still impressive. And then obviously we saw it on Saturday night. I mean, that is dominant performance, not only this season, but several maybe seasons of college football, what they did to Texas on the road in the first half. Defensive front was the story. Dominated Texas' offensive line, which we thought was a top 5 offensive line in the country. Still might be so. We didn't see like star power on that defense. We saw it on Saturday night. Jalen Walker, 3 sacks, 7 quarterback pressures. That's what Georgia's defense has looked like for the last 4 or 5 years, and we finally saw it on Saturday night.
Okay, I heard the word fraud kicked around a little bit regarding Texas here on Saturday night. They got fraud checked. People love doing that now. People probably do overuse that expression a little bit. But how much do you downgrade them after that sloppy performance? At halftime, they're down 23-0 on their home field. Pretty ugly, right?
Well, yeah, you got to downgrade them a couple points. I mean, just for the fact we hadn't seen them play top 25 team. I know Oklahoma and Michigan are big names, but I mean, those teams are going to struggle to make a bowl game at this point. So they finally played somebody with a pulse and got exposed, certainly in the first half. Now, I will say this. I liked what I saw in the second half. They fought back. We're a little bit in the game. Maybe thanks to an official call there, but maybe the students who threw bottles on the field to get that call overturned. But hey, look, a lot of people. There's no dominant team in college football. Everybody has flaws. Texas finally played somebody and got exposed a little bit. You look at their schedule, they're going to be favored in every game, the remainder. So they're not as dominant as we thought they were, but they're still, I'm not going to all of a sudden drop them out of the top 5 just for, a bad first half.
How are we feeling about Quinn Ewers? I love a good NFL mock draft. I looked at a few last week. A couple of them had him going in the top 15. Do you think he's a first-round talent here as a quarterback?
I think he'll go in the first round because teams always overreach for quarterbacks. But would I take him in the first round? No. Injury issues, every season's now. I mean, 3 straight seasons with injury issues. I don't know the kid, obviously, personally, but he originally commits to Texas, decommits, goes to Ohio State for a year, transfers out, goes back to Texas. There's some off-field stuff that I don't think he's necessarily buttoned up. And we obviously haven't seen him perform an extremely high level in a big-time game. But, you go back to the playoff game against Washington was meh. Last year against Oklahoma, meh. Didn't see it. And then obviously didn't see it on Saturday night. So, no, I would not be taking him in the first round.
Destined to be a Las Vegas Raider and injured by
there you go.
That's
the type of team that's going to draft him, a Cleveland Browns organization or a Raiders organization. But the winning teams, the winning franchises aren't taking him in the first round.
Yeah, professional athletes don't tend to get healthier as they age either.
No.
So he'll be behind a bad or offensive line somewhere, I'm sure. So we love this market. Will they or won't they make the playoff? Alabama all the way down to minus 105 to make the playoff following their most recent loss. Do you think it's a good time to fire on those odds, or are they just too much of a mess here ahead of a couple of ranked matchups coming up?
I think it's a fair price, but I wouldn't be jumping in. They are I mean, it's just not one game. I mean, it's been 3.5 games going back to ever since they led Georgia 28-0, and they're in the first half. Didn't like it again. Second half against Georgia. Didn't like it against Vanderbilt. Could have lost to South Carolina. Did lose last week against Tennessee, and I don't think Tennessee's that great. They don't do little things well. They're one of the most penalized teams in the entire country. They don't protect the quarterback. The quarterback's not playing well. Locker room doesn't seem to be buttoned up like it was for 17 years under Saban. Then you look at the schedule. Sure, they're going to be favored in every game but one. But can you trust them right now? I mean, when you lose to Vanderbilt and you almost lose to South Carolina, and besides Mercer, every game's losable, especially on the road at LSU, where there'll probably be a slight underdog in that game. So no, I'm not betting Alabama to make the playoff.
Okay, Crimson Tide is down bad. Ashton Genty is up big, though, a week off. He is still the favorite here to win the Heisman. So as long as he keeps stuffing, kind of a two-part question here, as long as he keeps stuffing the stat sheet, do you think he wins? And also something against him, not a whole lot of big games here for Boise State, and no stakes whatsoever. Do you think that could ultimately hurt him?
Well, the big game will probably be Friday night, but I mean, it's still big game for people that are in the weeds on college football because they're playing a good UNLV team. So that'll be, he needs to have a good performance on Friday night. I think I'll say this: if he breaks Barry Sanders' record, which is like a holy grail type record in college football, then he's got he deserves to be the Heisman favorite. But he also needs his team to continue to win out. They're only a 3-point road favorite this week, but as long as they win out, as long as he comes closer, breaks Barry Sanders' record, he'll win the Heisman. If that doesn't happen, either one of those doesn't happen, then certainly the door is open for a Dylan Gabriel. And then, if you're making a bet right now, you look at Miami's schedule, you look at what he's doing. Cam Ward, if I had to make one bet right now, I hadn't made a bet all season in the Heisman, I'd be betting Cam Ward to win it for Miami.
Yeah, hell of a game between them and Louisville there on Saturday.
You called it. You said high scoring. I remember you setting me up for it, and I said, nah, take Louisville. Yeah, didn't get there.
Well, sometimes it's simple. You take a look at the teams and their average scoring, combined scores per game, and you can say, hey, these teams are 10-1-1 to the over this season. Sometimes it just makes too much sense. Sometimes it's simple, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I overthought it. So good on you on that one.
Yes, sir. Okay, let's get into a couple best bets here. We have two. I'm sure we'll have more on Friday, but let's start the week off strong. And let's start here Wednesday night. Some Wednesday night college football action. Kennesaw State, a big underdog, 24 points. You like them to cover it.
Yeah, Kennesaw State might be the worst team in the country, but you give me the right number, I can bet it on any team. And I'm going to bet on them here, but it's more of a fade against the team they're playing. Liberty. How can you fade Liberty? This is a team that's won 17 straight regular season games going back to last season. Well, Liberty's, in my opinion, the most overrated team in the country. They played the weakest schedule, not exaggerating. If you include the FCS teams, it's a middle of the road FCS schedule is how bad the schedule has been for Liberty. And with that in mind, they haven't beaten anybody on their schedule by 24 points. So a big time home game for Kennesaw State as far as, they're welcoming an unbeaten team. Kennesaw plays a slow tempo, so it's tough, outside of Jacksonville State, it's been tough getting margin on them. So, yeah, I like Kennesaw State quite a bit. Not that I think they're live or anything, but I think it's another underwhelming win for Liberty. So let's take the plus 24 with Kennesaw.
Okay, next up, let's go Thursday night college football action. Pittsburgh favored by 5.5. You like them to cover?
Yeah, dead number here. So is it going up or is it going down? I mean, the point of this Monday show is get in front of the line moves here. So I think it's going up for a variety of reasons. Number one, you just look at the team's statistical profile. I mean, yards per play margin, Pittsburgh's 2.5 yards per play better on their margin on average than Syracuse. That doesn't scream 5.5 point spread with a home favorite. That screams double digit spread. So I like that in that regard. And then you read the market tea leaves. Syracuse got a lot of money bet against them the last time we saw them out against NC State. And the markets love Pittsburgh. They've covered every game but one. So Pittsburgh for me, let's lay the 5.5. Probably close at 6 or more.
All right, Brad, we got to get another prediction for you. Yankees or Dodgers? What do you think?
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm happy for the TV networks. It'd be anxious to see, is baseball really falling? We're going to find out with the TV ratings on this one. I think it goes 6-7 games.
Yeah.
Give me the Yankees.
Yeah, lots of overs. So yeah, I would take the Yankees as an underdog too. I think got to dig into it a little bit more though. Okay, Brad, we will leave it at that. But of course, you're going to be right back with us on Friday to dig into the big games of the week, and of course, some more best bets.
We'll have 3 or 4 more best bets. Just we're looking to hopefully be 2-0 by the next time I talk to you.
Let's go.
And then we'll take advantage of the late week market.
Awesome, Brad. All right, man. Well, best of luck with your handicapping here for the rest of the week, and we look forward to speaking with you again on Friday.
All right, take care, guys.
Yes, sir. The man right there. We have a massive, massive, massive week in sports here coming up. Of course, the World Series starts on Friday. We got a bunch of action going on to get us through to Thursday night football. We have the NBA starts up tomorrow night, the regular season. UFC 308, one of the best cards of the year, going down on Saturday afternoon, actually. So a massive week in sports and sports betting. We're covering it all here on the Covers YouTube channel. So make sure you are subscribed. It makes our content a lot easier to find. We're going to be right back with you guys tomorrow. Professional sports bettor Hitman will be by to break down some of his best bets here for, is it week 7 or 8 next week? The NFL season just absolutely flying here. I think it's week 8 of the NFL season. So he'll be by. Jon Metler will be here. He starts every single day on the show starting tomorrow, dropping his favorite prop bets for the games here with the NBA season tipping off. So cannot wait for that. 10P Kid says 2 p.m. start lame for the UFC. You know what? As someone who's got young kids who lives on the East Coast, I don't mind an afternoon UFC because I'm often up to like 2 a.m. watching these things. So I don't mind that once in a while, a couple times a year. It's not too bad. All right, guys, great show today. Thank you to both of my guests for joining. Thank you to producer Mick, did a great job producing the show today. Thanks to BetMGM for sponsoring the show. Thank you to all of you guys for watching. Best of luck with your bets tonight, and I will catch you again tomorrow. Woo!